Welcome to Let's Talk Franchising, the podcast where we break down everything you need to know to turn your business into a thriving franchise, sell more franchise units, or just become a true franchise expert. I'm Susana Hands, your guide on this journey where we cut through the jargon, share real stories, expert tips, and inside strategies that actually works. Whether you're dreaming about franchising your business, stuck struggling to sell franchises, or simply hungry to learn the secrets of franchise success, you're in the right place. So grab your coffee, get comfortable, and let's dive into today's episode. Let's talk franchising. So welcome, Luke, to my program, or I should say, Let's Talk Franchising channel. Thank you very much for your time today. Let's start with you, or telling us a bit about who you are and why we're having this conversation today.
Susana, it's always a pleasure to see you, and thank you for having me today. A little bit about me is I help start up and emerging brands know if they're franchisable or not before they spend a lot of money and time figuring out that they're not.
Absolutely. And that's the reason why we've connected, because I remember when I first met you, I was like, I have some brands from Australia that want to go to the US, and we still don't know if they're actually going to make it over in the US. And for us, it's a very big, expensive exercise, especially with the dollar, the dollar exchange and things like that. So when we first connected, I think the beautiful part of it was that you don't just franchise anyone that says they want to be franchised. And that's what resonated with me, because we're very, very alike in that regards. And I feel like if we don't have a brand that's going to scale, then let's not franchise them. So what are your thoughts around that?
Oh, absolutely. And there are great companies that will create an FDD and create operations manuals, and that takes about $100,000 to $150,000 to get started. And we take it a step further and look at the business. Look at what systems they have set up, not only for their core business, but the franchising. Because having an FDD and an operations manual doesn't mean you're going to succeed.
It's true. Very true. So what's the secret sauce you feel that will make them successful if they were to merge from Australia to the US?
It has to do with their systems and the infrastructure that they're setting up to be able to franchise. One of the biggest questions I'll ask somebody that's already franchised is, if you doubled your unit count in the next 6 months, what's going to break? What systems are going to feel the most pressure? How are you going to ensure that what you're trying to build is repeatable across distance?
Absolutely. And I think that's super powerful, because I always say to brands that I work with in Australia, can this brand work without you being there every single day? Can your website sustain the expansion? And if it isn't, then stop, pause, look at that, implement the fixture, and then let's keep going, because otherwise it gets a bit tricky when you're trying to do that whilst you've got your franchisees already on board to make changes like that.
Absolutely. And there are examples of famous franchises that had to do that stop and pause that you talk about. Orange Theory is one that comes to mind to begin with. They were huge global expansion, and they had to pause for months to work on their infrastructure, because they were expanding too fast and couldn't support those franchises that were in different companies, or make sure that the ones they had here in the States were repeating what they're trying to repeat.
Yeah, and that costs a lot of money, a lot of time, and a lot of frustrations from the franchisees when you're trying to figure things out whilst they're already just invested so much money into the brand and wanting to expand, and all they want to do is show me the money, right? Show me, how do I make this money? How do I make
Show
this
me the
business
money.
work? So tell me more about, obviously, brands that you've helped and brands that you've worked with that have scaled and have done very, very well over there.
Yeah, we've helped children's enrichment concept. It's a children's gym, but it's unique. They came to us when they had about 20 units, and we worked with them for 2 years or more. And our commitment is no more than 6 months. Within 6 months, folks know whether they want to work with us and vice versa. We worked with them for 2 years and got them to the point where they're about 80 units, and they just outgrew us for that necessary market. We're currently working with a couple of startup brands, and one of the biggest things to define first is the ideal partner profile. I mean, how many times have you heard a franchisor say, I brought 10 units on to begin with, and now 2 years later, I'm trying to get rid of half of them.
Or they buy them back and corporately,
Right.
yeah. And why do you think that usually happens?
Because number one, they don't know exactly who's going to fit their system and follow their processes. And the other part of it is about 30% of new franchisees, it's their first time owning a business. That's huge. Even though they have the operations manual, they have the marketing, they have the support, there's something different about running your own business.
Sure is. Do you guys help them through that to help them understand what they've gotten into, how they have to go out?
Yeah, we do. Typically, what we see, and I'm sure you do too, the first franchisees are in the tight network of the founder. That's great. You have a personal relationship, you know and like and trust that person. It also makes it difficult to have that relationship because now it's more than a business relationship, and it's difficult to keep them in line. And I don't mean to say that in a negative way, but to make sure that they're repeating what needs to be done in the franchise and not let them go outside the box.
Absolutely. And that's the key, right? To be successful in franchising, you've just got to be able to want to buy into that system, into the business model that has been tested and trialed and it works. Those who tend to think I can do it my way and I can do things better tend to go outside and they stray, as I say, and then they come back and they're like, why did I do that? That was a very expensive exercise. It just didn't work. But we've heard it all the time. And I know a lot of my clients, they always say to me, Susanna, why is that franchisee doing that? Why are they wanting to go off and do something that they think is best? Why didn't they just try it themselves? Well, that's the purpose of them buying into your franchises, because they're buying your intellectual property. They're buying your franchise model that has been tested and trial. Why don't they just follow it? It's very easy for us to say that because we're not sitting on the other side of that fence actually doing it. But it's a very interesting one, and I guess I hear it all the time. So, what's one of the biggest learning things you've had over the years working with many franchisors or establishing brands?
Yeah, well, going back to that last point we were touching on, it's a balance because especially for the founding franchisees, the franchisor doesn't have it all figured out. I was a first franchisee of a system and I was not their ideal partner. They wanted somebody that already had washing machines and drying machines and folders and the whole infrastructure for laundry. I didn't have any of that. I had to contract it all out. So, yes, I did have to kind of invent some things on my own, but I followed their direction. And so there's a balance of figuring it out, but yet staying within that box.
And that's a key thing you say, actually. When you're looking at merging brands, when those people are looking at buying into a brand that's just started, starting in a country, starting in an area, or it's new into franchising, we call them the trailblazers. I know that I say that. I won't say that to them. But it's actually a really good time to get into a franchise model because you come in as your, the first 5, the first 10 are always going to be getting a lot more out of that franchisor than when you're like the 50th or the 60th, because then after that, they've got it all figured out and you're just bang, bang, bang. So, yeah, so for those who are thinking of buying into a franchise, obviously the new brands, either way, it's scary. It is scary to invest in a new brand because, does this work? Where am I going to make my money out of this and things like that? But I think the way we work with a lot of clients is, and I'm sure you do this as well, is we would not franchise anyone that hasn't got a very solid business model that will be making it very successful for franchisees to take on. So do you agree in regards to that?
Absolutely. And it's a risk reward because not every franchisee is the same. Their risk tolerance is different. To be one of those founding franchisees, your risk tolerance has to be pretty strong. And you have to understand there's going to be a lot of trial and error and not expect things to be perfect right off the bat like they will be for that 50th franchisee.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So let's talk about how you can advise brands that are coming from Australia into the US. What's some key things that they need to either do or research or kind of know before going into a different country, especially the US? It's a huge market. What's some tips and tricks you can give us Aussies?
Well, one thing I'm sure you work with your clients well with is number one, know the market. What are they getting into? Who are their competitors? The biggest thing is how are they different? Because in franchising, you're not only competing against somebody who does lawn work, you're competing against all the other franchises. In my role as a franchise broker, I might show a client a business consulting brand. I might show them a home services brand. I might show them 4 or 5 different brands in different sectors. So you're not only competing in that, but you have to have a strong franchise value proposition of why you're different. Number 2, make sure legally you have all your IP protected. Number 3 is ensure you have financial support to be able to withstand some storms because you're going to have them in the startup mode. Number 3 is have a plan. Even if you're the founder and you're doing everything right now, have that plan of how you're going to grow once you get to that 6, 10, 20 unit mark, because you won't have the time to be able to take care of everything.
Very true. Very true. And that's a really important one you said about knowing or having the legal side of things in place, because in the US, depending on where you register, means that you've got a different registration, rules and regulations, I guess. So there's only 3 or 4 states that you can actually register that doesn't need. Do you want to go a bit into that? Because I know that's a very, very interesting topic for us here of knowing which ones we can and which ones we can't and what's easy and what's hard.
I think there are somewhere, and don't quote me on this, but there's roughly 17 or 18 registration states. So another point that you're talking about as far as coming from overseas into the US is have a growth strategy of where do you want to focus? Do you want to start with master franchising to begin with? Or do you want to sell individual units? How are you going to train and support people in the US when you're still based in Australia or New Zealand or wherever you're coming from? There has to be that US support here in the US. But you can create that strategy to begin with.
So can you find that person? If I have a brand that wants to go to the US, they've done their research, they've got a connection, how do they find that master franchisee first before they know, okay, I'm ready to take on this plunge and, ready to take on this expensive exercise to get this over there. Because in Australia, we can't promote we're a franchise brand unless we've got all the documents and we're registered. Can you still do that in the US without kind of technically already being a franchise model in there, or?
That's where relationships matter. That's where someone like you says, hey, I know Joe Smith. Let's just talk. You don't have to offer the business, but you can talk and see if things align and then go from there.
Well, look, let me share with you. I've got a couple of brands, well, more than a couple of brands that have said to me, Susana, can we go into the US? And I'm like, yeah, I'm sure we can find you a way. So there's definitely some opportunities there, Luke, that I will do some introductions for you. But I guess one of the things that I always know that it's one of those things that they're not sure of, because in Australia, we can sort of say to them, you've got to be prepared to spend X, Y, Z, because you've got to do, one of the other topics is trademark. You're going to trademark in Australia. You need to be able to do trademarking for globally as well, and especially, going internationally. That's been a bigger topic in itself, where people go, yeah, I can do this. And then they get to the US or they get to another country and someone else has a very similar name or the same name and they can't trademark over there.
Right.
So have you ever worked with somebody that has had that they couldn't do a trademark because of something very similar and you've had to navigate around it?
I haven't had that experience yet, but we work with a very trusted franchise attorney that not only do I send all of my franchise candidates to work with, because he talks plainly. He'll go through an FDD and help them just understand what their rights and responsibilities are, and the franchisors in very plain language. But he also works with the trademark part, the FDD part, all of that. I mean, he's focused specifically in franchising.
Yeah, and it's very important. So I know a lot of brands need to have the expertise, and like you say, in the local country. Now, tell me something with regards to selling franchises, because I know you mentioned you're a broker, so you do sell for a lot of your brands. What's the biggest thing, the biggest challenge you find when you're selling brands over there? Can it be funding? Could it be the brand itself, or trying to match a person to the actual brand and whether they're going to suit or not?
Yeah, it's alignment. I focus on finding candidates that are C-suite executives that have either recently been downsized or they have enough experience with the company, leading teams, understanding business, that they want to start their own and create value for themselves and a legacy for their family and an impact on the local community. It's hard to do when you're in a Fortune 200 company in the C-suite. So my candidates are typically looking to start that business on their own in their community. But it comes down to alignment. They have such good experience behind them. Their BS meter is real strong. And if a franchise brand comes at them a little bit sideways, they see that in a heartbeat.
Love it. It has to be like that. I think you've got to be savvy enough to be able to understand what you're getting into and then understand how you're going to navigate through it. Because it's not easy. It definitely isn't easy being a franchisee, being a franchisor, being a business owner, regardless of what you want to call yourself. It's definitely very, very challenging, but the challenges are very rewarding.
Absolutely.
If you find the right alignment. Now, in terms of what's your next steps? I mean, you've been doing this for quite some time now, but is there anything that you want to achieve that you haven't really achieved just yet, or you want to try to do and you haven't really done? So what does that look like for you?
Well, thank you for that question. And the answer is yes. Right now, currently, brands are evaluated based on experience, intuition, advisors. And every advisor is different. Every consultant is different. I'm working on a standardized structural evaluation of franchise brands. So be looking for that in the next few months.
Love that. So what are you actually looking for? So if anyone that's listening here and you want to understand exactly what Luke's talking about, elaborate, please, for me.
I'm starting with the evaluator role. And with this role, it's completely different than what we're used to in franchising. You and I help brands. So our initial thought is, how are we going to help this brand? The evaluator role that I'm looking for is going to take a set of anonymous data from the franchise brand. They won't know who the franchise is. They'll evaluate that information against the standards that I've created, and they'll score it. And then and that's all they do. They don't say, yes, it'll pass. No, it doesn't pass. That's for another group to do. They just evaluate it. So it's kind of a very detail oriented, almost engineering mindset of here's the information I have. Here's the standards that I've been given. How do they fit?
And when they do fit, and when you find that they are a great fit, then what's the next step from there?
That information then is that scored information is passed on to a separate board who will then evaluate to make sure the process was followed correctly. And they'll either award the seal. It's kind of like in the United States, we have what's called underwriter's laboratory that ensures that a product going to a market is safe. And if a product does go to market without that, they can't be insured. So it's kind of along, yeah, it's kind of along those same lines.
I love that. And I feel like anyone that knows they have that stamp of approval there, it's a very well thought out brand that's been very well evaluated and has some nice legs on it, as I say, and is going to be a very, very good brand to get involved in.
I love that. Nice legs on it.
It's a good analogy of that.
Perfect.
What type of brands, or are you just looking for any brand that wants to take the evaluation, and what's the purpose? I mean, I know that I know what the purpose is, but if you want to elaborate, what's going to be in it for that brand to do that, apart from it costing some money?
Well, what the brand gets from that is an independent evaluation of their brand. So they know exactly what they need to work on. What's next? Whether they earn the seal or not, that's not the value. If they do earn the seal, now you're going to cut down on your due diligence time of working with a franchise candidate. Because with this seal, they can understand it's already been evaluated. I know I'm getting into a less risky brand. They'll also be able to use the seal for marketing, not to say, hey, we're 100%. You invest in our brand, you're going to be successful. That's not the case because there are too many working parts between a new business owner and what they're doing. It just says this brand has everything in place to be successful as a franchise.
You just got to follow the model and follow the brand and follow the training. Yeah, yeah, which is key, right? And that's something that most franchisees either get it or they don't get it, and then they question why I'm not doing so well. Well, they obviously have diverted somewhere along the way. And is it expensive to do that evaluation?
I'm not at that point yet. I'm still working on recruiting evaluators.
Nice, nice, nice. Well, is anyone out there wanting to do evaluation? Luke's looking for people. But it's a really interesting one you said, because I always look at brands and they always say to me, Susana, what are your thoughts? You work with so many different brands. Would you buy into this? And I think they want to know that if I would buy into that brand, I'm giving them a tick of approval that I've vetted that brand and it makes sense, and it's not the franchisor is genuine and not some cowboy out there that's just going to take their money and run. So I guess it's really important that I get a lot of people buying a franchise, whether I work with a lot of franchisors, but when I get franchisees coming to me and saying, Susanna, what are your thoughts on this brand? That really makes me like, oh, you actually, yeah, you care about what I think about that brand. Not that I'll ever talk any bad about anybody or brands or anything like that, but there are some out there that I would probably never invest in any of them. I won't mention any names, but Yeah, you just get to know them over the years of what works and what doesn't work, and who's actually genuinely wanting to help their franchisees and who aren't. So I think what you're doing is quite powerful, and I think it's really important for people to have when you're ready and you're ready to launch, let me know, and
Well, thank
I'll
you.
send the link out to everybody that I know, and hopefully they can take you on. It's not just based in US, right? It's global. Anyone can take on that evaluation.
Well, it's kind of like a franchise. I'm going to start local, but I'll expand. Yeah.
You've got an Aussie friend that will help you out when you're ready.
Much like a franchise, I'm creating this so that 5, 6, 7 years down the road, I don't have to be involved.
Yeah. In the sales side of things, you mean?
Or any of it.
Love that.
There's 3 different layers. Number 1 is the board that creates the standards and governs the whole process. That's also the communication hub between the franchisor and the evaluator. They're the only group that will know who the franchise brand is and who they sent that evaluation to. The brand will not know who the evaluator is, just like the evaluator won't know who the brand is. That's the idea. Yeah, that it doesn't ever become a pay to play.
I love that. And that you get a true reading of what that brand is all about based on the facts and the truth, what's been shown and given to you, which I think is super powerful. There's not many of them out there that are doing exactly what you're doing, which is really good. You're onto something. I'm glad I've been one of those who have just listened to this. Definitely keen to see when the end result's there.
Well, thank you.
So is there anything else that you wanting to achieve, or that's pretty much it?
I just appreciate everything you're doing, Susana, and hope that you have safe travels and continue to impact franchising the world the way you do.
Thank you. And I thank you very much for your time today, Luke. You know that I'm always here to support my colleagues in the US. And if there's anything there that we can ever do together, you know where to reach out.
Have a beautiful day.
Thank you. And we'll speak soon. You take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye. That's a wrap for today's episode of Let's Talk Franchising. Thanks so much for hanging out with me, diving into franchising with me. If you've got something valuable out of this, do me a favor, hit subscribe, leave a review, and or share with anyone who you feel could do really well with listening to this. Got any questions or ideas for future episodes? Send them my way. I'd love hearing from you. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and of course, keep talking franchising.